a new kind of Bible, at least a new kind of New Testament, was given to the church in 1880. It was the product of a major decision made at the district meeting of the church here in Tonga in 1875. The decision was that Moulton should make a revision of the existing Bible that had been completed in 1862 under the supervision of Thomas West, 1846 to 55 here in Tonga. Moulton was to go to England in 1877 for 3 years to revise the scriptures and to see them printed. He was to have a translation assistant, Davida Finau, Tupou College tutor, honour board student of 1870. Finau had been one of Moulton's early helpers with the language and was the ideal person to be with his headmaster to assist in carrying out the revision of West's Bible. Finau, described by James Egan Moulton Jr. as, quote, a man of great intellectual power and with an exceptionally wide grip of the language. And he was one who Moulton himself knew could strike the grand chords and make the whole soul vibrate. Given their background and knowledge, the two college men, the headmaster and the tutor, were bound to produce a Bible that went well beyond revision and was more likely to be a retranslation. It would contain much that was new compared with West's Bible, because Moulton, working initially with Finau and later with other translation assistants, was building up a 15,000 word vocabulary of the Tongan language. Finau kept a diary where he recorded his daily discussions with Moulton as they worked on translation. His diary lists alternative readings using vocabulary from the general language of the people, together with notes on the origin and the meaning and the suitability of various words and expressions. Finau's nickname was the axe, the craftsman's tool with the razor-sharp blade. As his relatives were later to comment, he had the skill with language to carefully smooth out roughness and create a thing of beauty. The genius of Finau and Moulton was that they were able to give college students and the people of Tonga generally something they had never before possessed in print. A volume of literature filled with the best things from the language, from the culture, ancient and modern. On return to Tonga in 1880, Moulton was praised by the district meeting for the very important service he had rendered to Tonga and the people of Tonga. However, the Reverend Shirley Baker, who had become the King's Prime Minister, had a different view of the revised New Testament. His criticisms simply highlighted the basic difference in theology, philosophy and scholarship of the two men. Baker adopted a literal view of things, whereas Moulton was using Tongan illustrations, contextualisation, and Tongan words and phrases, dynamic equivalence. He used these in his translation of the scripture. Only two examples will illustrate the nature of the criticism. In Luke's Gospel, in the story of the prodigal son, the father says to the older brother, "Bring the best robe and put it on him." Moulton and Finau's work had resulted in the verse being translated as, "Bring the robe from the box, mehe puha, the best one, and put it on him. A meaning that was immediately understandable to Tongan readers, for it was after European contact that many Tongans had boxes or storage chests for the safekeeping of their very best things. Baker was troubled that this translation, because there was no mention, he said, of a box in the scriptures. Paul's comment in 2 Corinthians chapter 4 verse 4 that the Lord gave seed to the sower was translated by Moulton in Inaugural, the little piece at the top of the yam for the planting. Baker objected that there was no mention of yams in the scripture. During his time in England, the Vita Finau was given high prize by those who came in contact with him. He was seen as an excellent orator, and he was, to quote some people of the time, he so astonished the people that they voted him a genius. The split in the church of 1885. When in 1885 the church in Tonga was torn by division as the King's Church became dominant and the Wesleyans were reduced in number, initially to just a few hundred. One result of the split was that the Wesleyan Church faced great financial pain, even ruin. Part of the solution was to make appeals to the Wesleyan Church in Australia. Deputations, as they were called, provided gifted Tongan speakers to travel the Australian colonies, telling their story and raising funds to help the struggling Wesleyan Church in Tonga, including Tupou College. They were not necessarily assistant translators. Their genius was in working with Moulton to raise money in Australia to keep the college and the church afloat. Several of these men and one woman played a very important role with Moulton in the years that followed the split. Lesieli Tonga, Honour Board 1871, the name over there, was one woman who stood bravely during the hard times of the split, and with her husband, the Vita Tonga, they were sent on deputation to promote what was called the Tonga Relief Fund. Lesieli had been the first woman to gain a place on the prestigious Tupou College on the board, and in 1904 she received additional honours as a member of the Helo Helo, the continuing education classes that Moulton had established. Lesieli and Davita travelled widely in New South Wales, Victoria, South Australia and Queensland, telling firsthand of the hard times while they raised money for Tonga. They were very popular deputation speakers and effective ambassadors for Tupou College, where they both had received their secondary school education from Moulton. In Adelaide, on one occasion, Davita gave addresses in English to children and to the adults in Tonga. Lesieli, who spoke English with considerable fluency, interpreted the adult address in Tongan for her husband. The Reverend George Brown was with them, and he complimented Lesieli on the ability she displayed in that capacity as an interpreter. Lesieli featured in one of Davita's addresses during their deputation days, when he created great amusement, telling how he had courted Lesieli through a series of letters. He practiced his first letters on a slate, and then It was said he borrowed a leaf from an old hymn book to make his final proposal. In 1905, during the 40th anniversary celebrations of the college, Lesieli excelled and displayed her genius. In Moulton's words, the main feature of a particular evening was the recitation of the fine old Tongan poems, the only literature they possessed before the missionaries came. All the recitations were good, but that of Lesieli Tonga was super excellent. Much could be said about this outstanding woman, including in her later life a confidant and a tutor to the young Queen Charlotte. Tributes that appeared in the Methodist magazine and the Sydney Morning Herald in Sydney speak of a striking personality, a preeminent Tongan. It was said that Davita Tonga, her husband, attributed to her much of his inspiration and success. She was praised as one who certainly stood out, according to the Sydney Morning Herald article, as one of the foremost women of the South Seas. Nellie Taliai was one of the early Tupou College students whose name is celebrated on the honour board, again, over to my left there, in 1874. That academic honour was a sign of things to come, of a life of distinguished service to the college and the church. Like others who worked closely with Moulton, he experienced the hard times, barely surviving the ordeal. One aspect only of his work with Moulton and his service to the college and the church will be noted in this lecture, and that was his deputation work in 1886. His genius was to make a deep impression on his audiences with his oratory, including his use of humour. He delivered many a stirring address, and at a missionary meeting in Golden, New South Wales, the local newspaper reported that his address consisted of a series of simple yet winning statements, and that he concluded his address by narrating a couple of lively anecdotes which fairly convulsed the audience and created much amusement. Queensland audiences spoke of him as a natural orator of high order. When travelling with Melbourne through the colonies on that money raising, he often told the story of the Good Samaritan very effectively. One report summed up his impact. His speech throughout proved him to be possessed of a mind and a soul that were not surpassed even by his splendid physical frame. To a congregation in Brisbane, when he was thanking members for their generosity, he said that their good actions, like that of the Samaritans, would live forever. Taliai spent several years in Samoa at the Theological College, Rafilafi in Samoa, in the 1890s, and his Australian missionary colleague there in Samoa could not speak highly enough of his co-workers' ministerial duties and his tutoring at the college. I rejoice to call him my friend, that of all the holy men and women I have ever met, and they are many, I have never met one who more fully represented to me the Lord Jesus Christ as he did. Nor have I ever met a minister more faithful or capable in carrying out the duties of his high office. Sonny Fakau and Moulton in England. Sonny Fakau, honour board student 1876. A name to be added to those of Davita Tonga, Davita Finau, Lesieli Tonga, Henry Taliai, etc. In 1891, he went with Moulton to England, Like the others, Tupou had made a deep impression on audiences overseas. During his time in London, he attended a missionary meeting at the Leeds School, Cambridge, with Moulton, where they were both to be guest speakers. Moulton accepted the speaking invitation with more than a little concern. He felt that the college and the college student and himself personally were on trial before a Cambridge audience. It had always been his aim, he said, to make sure that Tupou College was a college in reality as well as in name. Writing to the Wesleyan Advocate in December 1891 about the visit to the Leeds School, Moulton said that he impressed on Tupou that the character of Tupou College was in his hands, and that if he failed, then they could never lift up their heads again. The former Tupou College student did not disappoint. He displayed his genius by beginning his speech with an appeal to the Almighty in the words from Paradise Lost. I then invoke thy aid to my adventurous song. What in me is dark, illumine. What is low, raise and support. Tupou won his Cambridge audience in an instant, and Moulton thrilled to the words of his student as he translated, as he put it, Tupou's choice Tongan language. He made a capital speech, Moulton said. He adverted to the glories of Cambridge. The gist of it was that it might seem impertinent of him to mention Tupou College in the same breath as the Cambridge one. But let them look at the sky and take a lesson from it. There were the signs of the zodiac. Most of those constellations contained stars of great brilliancy. But there was one, the Crab, without a star at all. Scarcely anything but a hazy cloud of light. And yet, it was allowed a place in the zodiac. And so he said, while Cambridge colleges were constellations bright with brilliant stars, Newton and Adams and many such people, yet let them not refuse a place in the galaxy of colleges to their Tongan brother. For although it produced no star, and was indeed little more than a hazy cloud, yet it was a cloud of light. That day, the college received from the Cambridge scholars all that Moulton could have wished. Tupou's genius had won the day. When the speeches were over, a distinguished guest remarked, "Mr. Moulton, when we saw the name college, Tupou College, we thought it was only a name. But your friend has taught us that it is more than a name, for his speech was the speech of a scholar to scholars." Ko Finau and Moulton at Newington. This Tiani Ko Finau was a significant contributor to the translation of the final form of the scriptures. He spent time in Sydney on several occasions during the late 1890s, early 1900s, working with Moulton. Moulton was at the time, and for a number of years, president of Newington College. They did deputation work together, promoting the interests of the church and especially the college, and raising money for the Tonga Relief Fund. A fascinating diary kept by Finau during the year 1900 gives a glimpse of the close working relationship between Moulton and his translation assistant. A few extracts will suffice. New Year's Day, this is New Year's Day 1900. He begins in Tonga, speaking about making a translation from Job. And then he continues in Tongan, Sydney, where he went also to Sydney, and then he breaks into English, and the rest of the diary is in English. When he says, post the letter to Vae and Kato also, and of course it's January in Sydney, so he adds the comment, very hot. As you read through the diary, entry after entry, we find these words. We have a little work in the morning. Translate all day. Next day, translate all day. Next day, translate all day. Then on the 17th of July, middle of winter, we have a little work in morning, half holiday. Very cold, not rain, but wind, very much cold. And then the entries again continue. Translate all day, translate all day, translate all day. I have a photocopy of that diary. I wish I knew where the original was located. I think it's here in Tonga somewhere. During the Tongan Synod of 1905, the completed revised Bible, Old and New Testaments, was to be presented to the church. It was the culmination of 25 years of the work of Moulton. It would be a special, proud moment for him. But that was not to be. An asthma attack struck him down. He suffered asthma all his life, was often very sick with it. An asthma attack struck him down, and he spent 20 hours, as he put it, in great weakness, too ill to attend the synod meeting. His disappointment was painfully obvious when he wrote, I had looked forward to laying on the table the publications of the year, the Bible, the new hymn book, our 20th century edition greatly enlarged, and a new edition of the Catechism. And then, quoting from Shakespeare's Julius Caesar, he remarked, to have to present that Bible by deputy, this was the most unkindest cut of all. I need Johnny Javier, Moulton's comment about Javier in the early years of the 20th century. In the 150-year history of Tupou College, several names stand out and demand special attention. One of those is the longest-serving head tutor of this college. For 40 years, he filled that crucial role of head tutor. And like some others, he had lived through the troubled times and was lucky to survive. His name, Johnny Javier. In later years of Dr. Moulton's life, Johnny fulfilled an important role and was a great strength to his former teacher. Moulton understood Johnny Javier's genius. Writing to his family members and to Walton Brown, principal of the college at the time, he made his evaluation of Johnny clear. I need Johnny Javier near me. but I would engross too much of his time, I fear. I must have Johnny Javier to train him for the future. He may have to take the college entirely. Johnny Javier was welcomed to the annual Wesleyan Conference in Sydney in 1906. Moulton was proud of his former student, now his translation assistant, and Johnny created quite a sensation when he spoke at the conference. Moulton commented at the time, "Many of the conference, the annual Wesleyan Conference, were deeply affected. Many are looking forward to the ordination night," Johnny's ordination, "with the feeling that it will be no ordinary occasion." While Johnny was working on translation in 1906, Moulton told Charles Walton Brown, principal of the college at that stage, to expect quite a considerable amount of literature. "I think I can promise either a volume of theology or another commentary. I have just finished the Geoffrey Cummins, the geography of the Bible. It will have over 200 pages and be a handbook of the Bible." And then to help assure Brown that he was not working Johnny Javier too hard, he remarked, "I have got him elected into a bowling club near here to learn the game and to introduce it into Tonga. They will be able to make a bowling rink in front of the college, between the college and the fence. It is good exercise for him. He sits too much." Johnny's intellectual and other qualities were highly valued by Moulton, and when news of from Tonga suggested that the college was in some kind of difficulty, Moulton wrote sternly to Brown in a letter that highlighted Johnny Javier's status and importance to the college and the church. Moulton said to Brown, "The college is the backbone of our work and the apple of our people's eye, and that it should suffer is not to be endured for a moment. So I have made up my mind with great reluctance to send Johnny Javier back to Tonga by the boat from here in December." In a final tribute to Johnny Javier and his work, Moulton added, "Johnny Javier has more than sustained the Tongan reputation." A year or two later, the college benefited from the research of E.E.V. Collicott, the principal of the college from 1911 to 24. Collicott published about a dozen books and articles and booklets, and he prepared them in consultation with Johnny Javier. Unfortunately, only one of the publications gives Johnny Javier credit as co-author. The Proverbial Sayings of the Tongans, published in 1922, has as its authors Collicott and Javier. But in the Tales and Poems of Tonga, Collicott gave a great tribute to Johnny Javier. He said this, "Tongan poetry is full of allusions which require an intimate knowledge of the circumstances referred to for their understanding. Without Mr. Javier's help, this work would have not been possible." And then he speaks of the many years of close association and intimate friendship with a man so intelligently interested in the past and bravely hopeful for the future of his people. "I would have this paper, the Proverbial Sayings of the Tonga, be a memorial of our many conversations, often extending far into the night, either in his room or mine at Nafua." There's a hymn that I might want to highlight as I bring this lecture to its conclusion. In 1886, after the split in the church, the Wesleyan Church in Australia debated for hours about whether to let Moulton come back to Tonga. One of the influential letters of support that came to the Wesleyan Conference was from Te Vita Tonga Moimoi. It included the following powerful imagery. Are you not aware, he asked the leaders of the Wesleyan Church in Sydney, are you not aware that the Tongan ship is out of the sight of land at the present time and is struggling with the waves of the gale, and numbers have been swept away and some have sunk, while we are but few now? And if by chance Sea Moulton had not been here, our people would have been swept away by the violence of the squall that we have been caught in. Here was a Tongan saint, communicating his message in age-old images of the sea and seafarers, applying it to a particular circumstances of the time, the hurricane of division that had hit the church. After Premier Baker had been deported in 1890 by the British government, Moulton saw the opportunity of returning to Tonga on a brief visit. The Moultons arrived from Sydney on the 17th of July 1891, and they were welcomed with a Latu and Paula when Wesleyans from all over Tongatapu streamed into the church singing their songs of welcome. Speeches and more singing followed, and when it was Moulton's turn to speak, he and his daughter Mary sang some verses that he had written on the voyage from Sydney, set to the tune of Whispering Hope. The English of the first verse can be translated as, friends, who will forget the day of the hurricane, with the wind at ahead and the craft in trouble? But heaven whispered, drive straight on through. Those who endure are the ones who will make it to land. Trim the sails and drive on through. The point of the reef is past, almost there. And then verses speak of the vessel filling with water, the crew swept overboard, all landmarks gone, and the hymn concluded, however, but now the wind has abated. No longer we battle the wave. The land is in view. Heaven was right. It is best to be patient. Those who endure are the ones who will make it to land. Trim the sails and drive on through. The point of the reef is past, almost there. That hymn focuses on word pictures that Te Vita Tonga had used a year or so previously when appealing for Moulton's return. It shows, I believe, the genius of Moulton and the genius of Te Vita Tonga coming together to produce something which has lasted for almost 150 years and that will live forever into the future. It was sung at the Queen Saloni College service at Saoni on Sunday the 2nd of September. It was sung also at the graduation, the TTI graduation. It refers to a particular situation, but it also helps the singers of today and of any day to link up with the various trials and difficulties of life. There will always be hard times. And the hurricane image has about it universal themes of disaster and determination and perseverance and endurance, and the encouraging word from heaven that says endure and you will make it through. At the homecoming in 1890, after Siviki Vai had been sung, one who was present later remarked that the effect on the congregation was hypnotic. In a moment we're going to sing that hymn, but I missed out on referring to something in one of the slides. I'm wondering whether we could go back to that list of Moulton's translations. Here is one of those books that you see there. My brother Colin, who spent 2 years here in the church office, and myself, have looked out for any examples of Tongan literature that have come up for sale. We have been able to collect those volumes that you see there. And this one, the first few years of the Tupou College magazine. Moulton's own copy, with his own notes, his own corrections to his own translations. This is a treasure. And this book and the others that are there, my brother and I have said they belong in Tonga. Genius was displayed in the life of the college and the ministry of its principal, its tutors and its students. In the process, important developments took place in language, in learning and in literature. It was shown clearly in the revision and retranslation of the Bible and in the hymns that are still an integral part of the life of the college and the church. The early honour board students added their genius in these developments. The influence of genius was also seen in the syllabus of the college. Astronomy and chemistry and mathematics and geography and history and theology and biblical studies. The early students of the college, the Vida Moimoi, the early Tonga, the Vida Finau, Paula Finau, Sione Haver, and Eli Taliai, and others too numerous to mention. Their names are on the boards over there. In the process of the development of language, in the process of the development in learning, and in the process in the development of literature. They all played a part. They worked with the genius of Moulton, and in the process they displayed a genius of their own. With new things happening in the college and for the students, and presumably for the church, Moulton alluded to the life of Columbus. In the book I showed you, there's a biography of Columbus. His students, he suggested, were like the great seafarer and explorer. The students in the college, he said, were like Columbus because a new world was opening to them. To use another image, a new day was dawning. In Moulton's time, for the future times, including our own times, working with language, learning and literature, college and church, will be enthused and inspired by the influence of genius. Thank you.
Tahu dia dia untuk maafi, kapaya tu apa, tahu dia asyik orang tong, on, betul, tahu dia dari kuini, Nanasipau'u, kuini tahu ni, kawan tak pokok orang dia ufam buat tak pakat, kamar dia kuliah ke Tupou, whakahoko koloa Tonga ko whamalo. Kumaina mai me kamata ko kalama. Tuta mai presidencia whakakone nei uri ko he. Whakapai kuata whakasitema kai forman musla. Pea koe nakarai si tai lahi o kui whakakata kuata septema a otu mua moluluma e wahapai. Kole mai pula ko kada me mua fatu me koe o kolo ia wi. Komalo ke o koma mate. Fala pe fole le o mua fio. To haere kloskot ko e fefi. Hoko ia ko e whakakoloa. Whakakoloa ki e api ako pēnia a whiona. Hange ko ia kau a whio ki ai ko e whanau ki ai te whi. Ne toi o mai ki te ofi mai. E mo'on, ko e momona, e tukuanga. Ne a whio ka moia a spōroki. No whinangalo ke langa e ako, hono kakai. Whakahuafu. Whiri i mai mai. Pura. Whaku mo kere kere. Loa ia e siasi. Ki tu whahoro mai whakamia koe. Ia whini ku whakafonga e ku a whio. Whakamalo roto honga moe. Pure a koe mo kau ngāu mai. Whanaua ko si rotonga. E ke ko si tutu. Al mātua. Al kaume. Kau ko whakoloa ki mātua. Ia whanau ki he whakakoloa tau nasa e kuani. Pero whakaukau ki taku teo ki mōkuru māua kohiri ki ono ātakai. Ka kia hau hilo, ka kia hamea whale o maha, ka kia hakara, ka kia hamea le. Ka whanai tanga daiki, o tupu mai, ka ngā tauha o ui, tuki i whanua, tak moia, ka uloki ak, kos ka Tupou, ka mai pure aku ni mai kai. Kaya ko tu Tongatau e whakatari ko tau whamalo kaya tu e mako no whinangalo ke whai hiki e programa ko tau whanua kaya mo pule ako no kawa kumako ko ne mamo whai mamali ke mo wako i he api ako kolisi ko Tupou na maari pe e nga hingo koe ni kene whakakongokonga e mau ilo kia te uta tonga mo e toa sione pe ka mohaifu ka e poni hangai tangata iki o mai ki nau tolu ke ofi mai o whakatua pe e ka koe o whakapau ka rau ātakai na whaina dedication na nau ma mo e nau boi ko tui ko te tapu e whonu ka nau toi whakataki o tua whakataki o tua makmak Na ia e tō tangata. Na whiri ia me mo e ni pena reki te homoi. Ka whauta. Te hanga te awhio, o whamanata mai. Ia koe ka mwao. Ke ua kāla historia koe. Ia o awhio ku mawana kuro tōke. Ku whamate whamalo no tōma moe. Wharu ko. Mai moa o whanua. Patea. Mina se kakai whanua. Mo mina se ai. Dr. Cummins and Anne. I'd like to, on behalf of their Majesty and all of us here tonight, and all those who are listening, and all the generations from the beginning up to the present time, we thank you very much for your work in collecting all these information to share with us. I was just saying that those of us who are fortunate enough to spend years as students of this college have our knowledge of the genius and his students who are doing all the work that they've shown us tonight. Our knowledge were very limited. It sort of come in spots. Tonight you are bringing them all very close to us. And we are very grateful. We feel very proud that we are part of a very rich history. Tonight here, I can see some of the descendants of those pioneer students, early students. There are thousands and thousands of them in Tonga and abroad. And on their behalf, we all thank you. Very grateful for sharing all this with us. We're looking forward for more of this. Not only pretty soon, but also in years to come with the help of God. Te omoi meu ki mai aspecto que foi formatado por mim o forma de morrer a minha mão é uma peia que o forma do vai falar ko kamatai ko historia ko Tupou kamata tap moia tap kamata bemre fare tu e fai mai ai ngau na fai ko tap fa no mo ke fio ke na fio ko ke historia vero Tupou ko historia ko sia si pe ko historia o ya ko Kaya na hiya mo to na takot pe ay siya si. Pero tuwi e fotuan. O historia na kau ko to kya. Pero kau ko to kya no. Famalo que está mai kau mau berana I'd like to thank His Excellency Andrew Ford and Christine for joining us in this really important occasion. Whakasio whamalolai e kure ako, Presidente ako, kaungawe, Tupou, I hono whakatutu o alawa koe, alawa ke tawinasia e fa wan wol ai pe hai ne trai ki pasen mal molo e se so toma ka ta e ma to malo vi o la mia mai che wa noi te na to ko be o ke ha ko ma dala nei historia da to ka to ko ia Frodawan ke otua mafi kene ke take whanonga Tonga pe ki pai tāpua ki na whare Tupou mo Tonga take whanonga ko Tupou i hilo lolo tongani ka maa ka hauna leo leo vai whahawa ka tau
We volgen hij fase na mafu fili kono no ya no fuma to le volgen hij kono no to ko tak neta hi tama ya la fe nai ahne to ya fa agi mi mua petangi pa ni ka tawa kan fa na ala mo biak ki mu de kau matatari tenawa usunu sila kibaji do ngahol ke koto mo da meta Ka kosini matang, ka i heka pea, futa ftonga arangi, ki te whanua ki mata. Tāne mōne arang, no le rei ke ukunga, pau ki kau matatari, te nā osu whanua. Sila ki ai, e ori ngā horo, e kotoa mai a mea kau.
Amen.